Mùng 3 đây là tưới cây.
Tưới cây.
Thế là vừa. Đấy, nó cứ một vòng như thế.
Coast to Coast AM. Happy New Year. Connie Willis here. It is 2022. I've been talking for 2 straight days, by the way. Mel Scahan is our guest tonight. He's been interested in the forest people and learned all about them growing up as a child, living on the Yakima Reservation, and then working with the forestry department as well. And he has been giving us some insights that he's learned along the way. And he's got a great account that has happened that he's going to be telling us as well. And that will be talking about mutual respect that he came to find out. So, Mel, just quickly, you were talking about beddings. And is there like, I love going out in the snow because I think you see more. Did that make a difference in finding beddings or any nestings with you?
Yeah, going out in the wintertime, you have a better chance of, finding a track line of some sort of them. And then, if you follow them enough, some of them just up and disappear and you don't find the tracks anymore. But if you find what's unique in some areas working year round, especially in the winter, when you follow the track lines of one or a family unit, you come across I described foliage that they use to construct their beds, but they also do it in the wintertime. And what they do in the wintertime is that they clear out an area. There could be 2 feet of snow there, and they'll push all that snow aside and create this berm of the snow that they've pushed out. And my very first one that I've located, it was so fascinating and unique that I came closer to them at that point, because what happened was is that when I saw all the tracks and then I located this special spot, they cleared out that snow down to the vegetation, and they lived in that. They laid in that, and they laid up on the berm of the snow around this clearing. And when I found it, I ran my hands down, and the body heat, on the edges, you could feel each individual hair of them as their body heat, melted or iced up the snow. And I mean, you talk about a special event. I mean, in the wintertime, they also create these types of bedding areas, and that's one thing that I wanted to get across as well, is that you can find them year-round.
That is, just real quick before you do your story, here's one of my questions that I've always had. To me, they're so intelligent that I believe that there's no way that this is my theory for today, right? It changes as you learn more, right? Never stick
Right.
to it, but but they're so intelligent. They're highly advanced. There's no doubt in my mind. And I just think that they wouldn't live in the elements, that they are smart enough to get in out of the rain. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's interdimensional. I don't know they go underground. But is there something to what I'm saying, or do you feel like no, they're in the elements and on the surface?
Um, they like all other uh, wildlife or animals. The deeper the snow, unless you're small critters like squirrels and everything else that live in the area. But the deer, the elk, the moose. Once a snow reaches a certain depth, they have to come down out of that area. All of their foods that they thrive on, the other parts of the year are buried and they can't get to them, so they have to move down. And it's the same way with the big people, is that they have to move down as well, because your feet can only take you for so far before you're post holing into deeper snow. And I've seen that, so I've seen them move down into the lower elevations towards the Yakima Valley, the lower Yakima Valley, as the snows got deeper.
So you're saying no, they're on the surface, Connie. They live on the surface. That's
Well, see, the over my years being out there, that's what I've seen. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not interdimensional or anything. I followed tracks to a point where they were gone. I couldn't find them anymore. I mean, what am I to think? What had happened here? Did they break a branch off and then all of a sudden start wiping their tracks away?
I know. It's crazy. I know. And then our buddy Mike Patterson, right, Sasquatch, Ontario, he's like, these footprints will just appear, and they might walk for a little bit or not, and then they're gone again. But he notices something which is really cool. He's like, when you first see them, there's mud and dirt, and then it goes away as they keep walking. So he's like, wherever they are, they've got dirty feet. It's dirty on the bottom. I found that interesting little fact too. So, Mel, let's hear your story.
Oh boy, every time I share this, and I've shared it with a couple of different folks, and every time I tell it, I get very emotional, because this, we all start out at a certain point. That certain point is some type of sound, some type of encounter that we've had, and we want to go deeper with it. And you get to the point as from that initial shock, and then wanting more info, and then that info keeps going and going, and then you buy the equipment, you go on expeditions, you meet a lot of people, and you find the similarities of everything that you've come across yourself. That's the path that I was on. And I was at that point where I bought the equipment. I was out in groups, and I was sharing my information, because that's what, as the community grows and develops further on, that's what everybody prior to me did. They shared that information, and they everybody wants to know more. And what I'm going to share here, I hope, is passed on to the respect, because we can't go out there anymore and harass. And that's what I call is harassing, by wood knocking, by going out there and being obnoxious and trying to call them in. Because what we learn over the years is that they know we're there. They know we're repeated humans in certain areas, because they've marked those territories. They've marked the lookout towers. They marked the cabins. They marked the roads. They've marked everywhere human activity is. So they're onto us, and so we just got to respect them now as who they are, and take this to the next level of some type of better communication with them. And the only way you're going to and the way I always put this is that when you go see a neighbor, you're new to a neighborhood, and you want to visit your neighbors, you don't go in there and start hooping and hollering and partying and blah, 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 blah. You're sending a negative message. And that's the thing that we have done in their world, is that we sent out this negative message now that, okay, maybe we've had enough. We know you're there. So that's one thing that where this story is going is in my history of being a skeptic, to knowing about them, to being a researcher, and then finally being the respectful person that we're supposed to be to them. And years ago, working for the Yakima Nation, I've described that I walk in areas where there's no roads. I walk in areas that hardly a lot of people can get to. But because of my job, I have to collect this data in these areas. And while collecting tree data, vegetation data in these areas, there were three of us that were working. And we were working on this north-facing hillside. And over to my right, I noticed something that was odd about this certain spot. And so I walked over there, and then as I got closer, I still couldn't figure out what this was. And then as I got on next to it, on top of it, I'm on 70% slope. So it's a real steep slope. And there's this, what looked like a large bird's nest that was constructed. And the nest had a down woody log incorporated into it. The log was facing straight downhill. So it was like it built this nest, and it used this.
And I just think that they wouldn't live in the elements.
Like
that they are smart enough to get in out of the rain.
And as I'm looking at
this, I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's interdimensional. I don't know if they go underground.
Tall. The upper
but is there something to what I'm saying, or do you feel like, no, they're
level
in the elements and on the surface?
I mean, level. And so it's like all other as I'm going through this, wildlife or animals, everything is woven together. And the deeper the snow, unless you were described earlier, that these branches critters like squirrels and everything else that live in the area, and there's no tails to them, the deer, the elk, the moose. It took all these branches, and the snow reaches a certain depth, they have to come down out of that area. Built this up, all of their food. As I was going through it, I sat in it. The other parts of the year are figured out that they can't get to it, so they have to move down. That as the same way with the big people, down at a lower road, they have to move down. Oh well, how we drove into the area. Your feet can only perfectly hit so far before you're from the road. You're post holing in down below snow, and I've seen that. So I've seen them move down into the lower elevations towards the Yakima Valley, the lower Yakima Valley. Fine hairs in it. Snows got deeper. And
so you're saying no, they're on the surface, Connie. They live on the surface.
On the down woody log, and I looked at the woody log, and I pulled some more hairs out of my years being out there. That's what I've seen. My coworkers, I'm not saying that we were not interdimensional or anything. I followed tracks to a point where they were gone. And ran through and find them anymore. Scenarios about what am I to think? What had happened here? Did they break a branch off and then all of a sudden start waving their tracks here?
I know. It's crazy. I know. And then our buddy Mike Patterson, right? Sasquatch, Ontario. He's like, these footprints will just appear, and they might walk for a little bit or not, and then they're gone again. But he notices something which is really cool. He's like, when you first see them, there's mud and dirt, and then it goes away as they keep walking. So he's like, wherever they are, they've got dirty feet. It's dirty on the bottom. So I found that interesting little fact too.
Our work day.
So Mel, let's hear your story.
Word got out that I had, every time about the nest that I share this, and I shared it, I collected. And, it was a novelty thing for a lot of folks who would come to my work desk and talk to me about it. I get very emotional and say, well, when are you going to get them tested? And I was like, we all start out at a certain point. I don't know. I don't need to have these some type of, because I know what sound, some type of encounter that we built that. And we want to go deeper with it.
And you get to the point
one of our forest people had built that fort, that initial shock, and then wanting more info, and then that info so keeps going and going, and then you let his family or his unit go on expeditions. You meet a lot of people, and you find the similarities. All the trucks that drove into this area, they're gone. You've come across yourself, and that's the path that I was on. We can move around, be safe, and everything like that. And I was at that point where I bought the equipment to keep an eye on. I was out in groups, and I was sharing my information because years as a collecting community. After years and developed collecting further on, these hairs, that's what everybody prior to me did. They shared that information. They were deep in my database, and then they completely forgot about it. Everybody wants to know more. And what I'm going to share here, I hope, is passed on. I had attended to the house cleansing ceremony because we can't go out there. There was a spirit in a house anymore and harass and that's what I call is harassing, strong, wood knocking, creating, going out there, negative energy in the family, and especially trying to call them in his house because we learn over the years they tried different ways of they know getting this spirit out of the house. They know we're repeated, and they couldn't do it in certain areas because what they ended up doing was a family member. They've marked somebody, the lookout tower, they marked the cabins, they marked the road. They've marked. He was known to come out to the Pacific Northwest with his family. They're onto us in situations like this. So we just got to respect them now. Live as who they coexist in the same house. Then take this to the next level. He would come out type of better communication. Use the only way you're gonna. And the way I always put this is like when you go see. Neighbor folks out. You're new to a neighborhood. You want to visit your neighbors. What you don't go in there is that start hooping and hollering and partying and all the. You're sending a negative message. His instructions, and that's where the thing that we have no outside light in their world is that we send out this negative message now that all the windows, maybe they've inside the house, should make it completely dark because we know you're outside lighting. So from the street, that's one thing that. Where this story is going is everybody that was in my history in the house of being was as a skeptic to knowing about participants in the researcher in the ceremony, and then finally being the respectable person that I'm supposed to be to about 20 people inside. And there were years three of them working for the Yakima Shaman Nation. I described that I walk in areas where there's no roads. I walk in
Mel,
areas.
I'm gonna stop you right now because I know we're gonna take a break. I don't want to get you right at a point where I can stop you.
And while
where we're at in the story is you had all these hairs, and then you're now at a house that needs cleansing. And as you build that up, we'll take our break. We'll come back. We'll start from there so that you have a good point without, breaking it in the middle of something else. So Mel Scahan with us and his account of mutual respect with the Bigfoot and carrying that in to inspire you in 2022. So stay with us. I think you'll enjoy the rest of this as well. Connie Willis here. Happy New Year. It is 2022 and you are listening to Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. Happy New Year 2022. Connie Willis with you, and we're talking with Mel Scahan, who is right in the middle of his story to pass on to 2022 the mutual respect. And I just think they wouldn't live. Mel, make sure I got this right. Said they were smart enough to get in out of the rain and nest. So hold on to those for a while. I don't know what it is. Now we're in a place of original house, and they go underground. But is there something to what I'm saying, or do you feel like no, they're in the elements and on the surface?
I mean, level is there too. Like all other, as I'm going through this, wildlife or animals, everything is woven together.
Okay, it's all yours.
Unless you're small, these critters like pulled out straight out that live in the area, and there's no tail. After everybody was invited, what branches and the snow reaches a greater depth from the house down out of that area. All of their food, as I was going through it, added in the other parts of the generation are figured out that they can't get to it, so they have to move that as the same way with dinner or lunch. They have to understand, and also with the gifts. Your feet can only typically hit so far before you're putting your post holing into deeper snow. And I've seen that. So I've seen them move down into the lower elevations towards the Yakima Valley, the lower Yakima Valley.
Is going to be afraid of the dark.
So you're saying no? They're on the surface, Connie. They live on the surface. That's
I looked at the woody log and I pulled some more hairs out of my ears being out there. That's what I've seen. My coworkers, and not saying that we're not interdimensional or anything. I followed tracks to a point where they were gone. Be sitting and we couldn't find them anymore. Scenarios about what am I to think? What happened here? They break a branch off and then start placing their tracks here.
I know. That's crazy. I know. And then our buddy Mike Patterson, right? Sasquatch, Ontario. He's like, these footprints will just appear, and they might walk for a little bit or not, and then they're gone again. But he notices something which is really cool. He's like, when you first see them, there's mud and dirt, and then it goes away as they keep walking. So he's like, wherever they are, they got dirty feet. It's dirty on the bottom. I found that interesting little fact too. So Mel, let's hear your story.
The word got out around the house. Oh boy, about to help I share this in the house. I collected, and we could have visits from folks that would come to my work desk and talk to me about it and get very emotional, try to make contact. Well, when are you going to get them tested? And we all start out at a certain point. The ceremony. I don't know. I don't need to have some type of. I know the sound. Some type of encounter. We would build that, and we want to go deeper with it. Those instructions were given. One of our force people, the first for that initial shock, and then wanting more info, and the info keeps going and going, and then anything. Let his family or his go on expedition. Meet a lot of people. Find the similarities. Ever drove into this area? They're gone. Come across yourself, and that's the path that I was. We can move around, be safe, and everything like that. I was at that point where I bought the equipment. The next one again, I was out in next song again. It was my information because that year was as a higher community, different after your songs. Reflecting further on, had a progression to everybody prior to me did. They shared that. They were deep in my database, and then started. They completely forgot about it. Everybody wants to know weird sensation. What I'm going to share here, I hope, and is passed on. I had attended the house cleansing ceremony because we can't go out there. There was a spirit in a house and harass that was what I call is harassing and wood knocking, creating going out there negative energy and the vibration and trying to call him in his house. And it started on that side of the river, different ways of getting this spirit vibration repeated a way they couldn't do it. And started going underneath this. But they were marked the territory. They marked the vibration tower to the west underneath the floor. They've marked them as known where not to the floor where those families they're situations like this. Down into the lower back. We just couldn't attack them now. And then finally, as who are exist in the same house, and then that vibration. Take this to the next level. He would come out type of better communicated engines. The only way you're going to, and way I always put this is like when you go to a person to find out how you're new to a neighborhood, you want to visit your neighbors. Well, you don't go in there and start me. Pooping and hollering and partying and you're sending a negative message instruction. That's where we have no outside light. That we send out a vibration at all the windows to guide inside the house to make it completely dark because we know you're along the progression of what was going to happen. That's one thing that where this next song is everybody started in my history the house of being much was not as high. But knowing about nations in the researcher in the ceremony, and then finally being a respecter person that I'm supposed to be going on, you could feel the beat of the drum. And there were years of them working for the Yakima Nation. I'm seeing and walking down areas where there's no roads.
And Mel, I'm gonna stop you right now because I know we're gonna take a break. I want to get you right at a point where I can stop you. Where we're at in the story is you had all these hairs, and then you're now at a house that needs cleansing.
that we're
And
working.
as you build that up, we'll take our break. We'll come back. We'll start from there so that you have a good point without, breaking it in the middle of something else. So Mel Scahan with us and his account of mutual respect with the Bigfoot, and carrying that in to inspire you in 2022. So stay with us. I think you'll enjoy the rest of this as well. Connie Willis here. Happy New Year. It is 2022, and you are listening to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. Happy New Year 2022. Connie Willis with you, and we're talking with Mel Scahan, who is right in the middle of his story to pass on to 2022 the mutual. And I just think they wouldn't live. Mel, make sure I got this right. Said they are smart enough to get in out of the rain nest. So hold on to those for a while. I don't know what it is. Now we're a place of original house, and they go underground. But is there something to what I'm saying, or do you feel like no, they're in the elements and on the surface?
I mean, witnesses there too. Like all other, and I'm going through wildlife or animals.
Okay, it's all yours.
Unless you're small, these critters like squirrels and everything else that live in the area. There's no tail after deer. Everybody when they find one branches and it slow reaches the literature down out of that area. All of their food, the other parts of the area are very out there. They can't get to it. The same way they have worked all well. And also with your feet can only take so far before you're personally into deeper snow. And I've seen that. And so I've seen them move down into the lower elevations towards the Yakima Valley, the lower Yakima Valley.
So you're saying no, they're on the surface. They live on the surface. That's
some more here years being out there. That's what I've seen. My coworkers and not saying that we're not here to mention everything. I followed right to the point where they were gone. Be sitting on find a big come on. What am I to think? What it happened? They break a branch off and then start waiting on their
I know. It's crazy. I know. And then our buddy Mike Patterson, right? Sasquatch, Ontario. He's like, these footprints will just appear, and they might walk for a little bit or not, and then they're gone again. But he notices something which is really cool. He's like, when you first see them, there's mud and dirt, and then it goes away as they keep walking. So he's like, wherever they are, they've got dirty feet. It's dirty on the bottom. I found that interesting in fact too. So Mel, let's hear your story.
Around the house. Oh boy, about to help share this disturbed. We could have everything from our when you get in touch, we all start out at a certain point. The ceremony. I don't know. I don't need to have some type of. I know the sound. I kept my count and we would have that, and we want to go deal with it. Something that we started to do. One of our force people at first that initial shock, and then after so that's going on anything. With his family or his on expedition, and a lot of people started going around the room. All the trucks that drove into this area. You had several yourself. You had that you had around Satan and everything like that. I was after going where I bought the equipment. The next people I got were there. I was out in groups. So me sharing my information because that's you as a higher community. You want to have a slightly further on. Had a progression. Collect everybody prior to me did. And they shared that. They were deep in my dad. And started to forgot about everybody needs a weird sensation. What I'm going to share here, somebody I didn't know on the house balancing ceremony because we can't go out there. There was a spirit in a house and harass. He hunts I call it harass. I would not creating going out there and weeding up the family. I'm trying to call them after this because we need to clear what's going on. There are different ways of getting there. So after the celebration done, like a way they can do it. there underneath this, but they don't mark it as a territory. Once they mark tell you somebody go lookout towers, they mark that and let you know the way you would know where not the force or your family of those responsible what situation like this. So you just open this back here now, and then finally coexist in the same house, and then take this to the next level with some type of with better communication, and that is the only way you're going to. The ceremony will put this is like going to the person who's you're new to a neighborhood. You want to told me neighbors. What you don't do in there ceremony start. You can't tell anybody holler that people you're sending in your car instruction. That's where they go. You have no outside light and send us a vibration all the windows to guide inside the house to make it took me a while to go along the progression of this one thing to have. Where this the next one is the everybody started in my history of the house being much not as high, but knowing about it to the researcher and the ceremony where finally the hair is respected down the hill and 20 people perform this ceremony and there were three of them working for the Yakima Nation. I'm sing after my drummers in the areas where there's no roads.
And Mel, I'm gonna stop you right now because I know we're gonna take a break. I want to get you right at a point where I can stop you. Where we're at in the story is you had all these hairs, and then you're now at a house that needs cleansing. And as you build that up, we'll take our break. We'll come back. We'll start from there so that you have a good point without breaking it in the middle of something else. So Mel Scahan with us in his account of mutual respect with the Bigfoot and carrying that in to inspire you in 2022. So stay with us. I think you'll enjoy the rest of this as well. Connie Willis here. Happy New Year. It is 2022 and you are listening to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. Happy New Year 2022. Connie Willis with you. And we're talking with Mel Scahan, who is right in the middle of his story to pass on to 2022. And I has found Mel, make sure I got this right, said they are smart enough to get in out of the rain nest. So on to those for a while. I don't know what it is. Now we're a place where it's a house and they go underground. But is there something to what I'm saying, or do you feel like no, they're in the elements and on the surface?
And as I'm going through the wildlife or animals, back to my car.
Okay, it's all yours.
These predators like squirrels and everything else that live in that area. No tails after everybody when they find what branches and it reaches the running down out there. And then there's friends as I was going through it, the other parts of the area are figured out that they have joy in the interaction because of gifts. I've never had negative interaction with them. And I've seen that. And so I've seen them move down into the lower elevations. I went on to Plain Valley.
So you're saying no, they're on the surface. They live on the surface. That's
what I've seen. Co-workers and not saying that we're not here to go over everything. I followed every story where they were gone. They are
Mel Scahan, thank you so much, Mel. I really appreciate that. Respect in 2022 and feel your emotions. Kristen Gillespie talking about that.
And then our buddy,
thank you again to our guests. And if you'd like to share, let us know right now. Say something good. These footprints might just appear from the foothills in Colorado. They might walk for a little bit or not. Julie Talbot, but easily notices something which is really cool. Like when you first see them, there's mud and dirt, and then goes away as they keep walking. So he's like, wherever they are. Adam Thompson, Jeremiah Harris, Ray Foster, Ryan Stacy, Imagine Girls, Ann Bennett, Lisa Gar, Richard Sirrett, George Knapp, and of course, George Norrie. Also, thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here. Until we meet again, keep watching the night skies and continue with me to seek out the strange at Blue Rock Talk, ConnieWillis.com, and uncover the unknown. Coast to Coast AM, I'm Connie Willis. Happy New Year. Happy 2022.
Up next, the modern-day mystic and psychic Elizabeth Joyce back with us. We'll talk about some of her past predictions, what she sees for the future, and then later on, we will take your phone calls. And what we'll need from you, we will call is your birth month, day, and year, and the state you're calling from this time. We'll be back with Elizabeth in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. George Norrie with you, along with Elizabeth Joyce. Elizabeth is what we would call a modern-day mystic, author, master spiritual teacher, and healer. She transmits pure energy from the source. Very popular, gifted speaker of the unknown mysteries, higher realities, higher wisdom. Many of her accurate successes have been documented through national media. She has also assisted the police, sheriff departments, and the FBI in finding hundreds of missing people. Her websites are linked up at coasttocoast.com. A couple of her books include Unlimited Realities and Psychic Attack. Are You a Victim? Elizabeth, welcome back, and we look forward to this year. How are you?
Happy New Year, George. I'm good.
I guess you would see the future before we would. How do we look?
Not too good. We are going to have some tough years in the next 3, and we all have to join together and go through what we have to go through. What people don't think about, and light workers as well, is what kind of energy do we need to lift the vibration permanently up to a higher level, so there's no more crime and hate and things that we've been facing, and that's the collective consciousness, and it takes time. It really does. We had a new energy come in this year on the 21st of December from the center of the galaxy, and it's a very lucky and blessing energy. It's going to be here for 3 months. What we're doing is really beginning to go into the galactic center, and I've been telling ministers and priests that they have to get their congregations together so that we can begin to accept and embrace our new galactic neighbors. We'll find out a lot about those facts as the telescope comes out, which I think is very exciting.
Oh, yeah, once they unfold everything and start sending back some whatever they send back in terms of pictures, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be neat. There's massive expansion to our galactic citizenry. So we have galactic citizens now. That's what we're going to need to be. And it takes time. This will evolve over the next year.
I'm going to stop you right now because I know we're going to break. I want to get you right to the point where, I can stop you. Where we're at in the story is you had all these pairs, and then you're now at a house that needs cleansing.
Other psychics have predicted this too.
As you build that up, we'll take our break and come back and start from there so that you have a good point without breaking it in the middle of something else. So Mel Scahan with us in his account of mutual respect
coming into the consciousness
and carrying that in to inspire you in 2022. So stay with us. I think you'll enjoy the rest of this as well. Connie Willis here. Happy New Year. It is 2022 and you are listening to Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. Happy New Year 2022. Connie Willis with you. And we're talking with Mel Scahan, who is right in the middle of his story to pass on to 2022. And he has found Mel, make sure I get this right, to say that you're smart enough to get in out of the rain. So on to those rooms. I don't know what it is. They're a place where it's a house and they go under canal spirit. But is there something to what I'm saying, or do you feel like, no, they're in the elements and on the surface?
stays in and picks the new vice president the way Ford did. And he would more than likely pick Hillary Clinton.
That's what Jane Holmes.
Okay, it's all yours.
And then she runs in 24, right? And she would run in 24.
I think she's getting ready to do something to down. I think she is preparing herself in case it does happen. And the third thing would be that it's thicker than we think. Has a way and Camilla doesn't take the vice presidency and the army, and we have and no psychic can tell you which one will happen. They can tell you which one they feel. But if it hasn't been decided yet, nobody really knows.
So you're saying no, they're on the surface.
You get a feeling? How does this happen?
Well, sometimes I get a feeling. Sometimes I have a dream. Sometimes I have an actual vision in front of me. You remember in 2017, I told you on Coast to Coast that Joe Biden would be president, and I named
Mel Scahan, thank you so much, Mel. I really appreciate that. Respect in 2022 and feel your emotions. Gillespie talking about
and then our buddy,
thank you again to our guests. And hey, if you'd like to share us, right, these footprints like just appear on the foothills in Colorado. They might walk through a little bit or not. Julie Talbot, but he's already noticed sometimes it's really cool. When you first see them, there's mud and dirt, and then, it goes away and they keep walking. So it's like wherever they go, that got to be feet. Jeremiah Harris, Ray Foster, Ryan Station, that's George Lisa God, Richard Mel, Horse, what's George Moore. Also, thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here. Until we meet again, keep watching the night skies and continue with me to seek out the strange. After we have talked,